Good morning. Just checking, hopefully everyone can hear me. Thank you for coming in person. We appreciate it. I know it must have been tempting to watch this from home, so thank you very much. So, my name's Jess. I'm from the library's education engagement team, and I've got Kat. Do you prefer Kat or Catherine?
Either.
From the Student Learning Support Service. And today we're going to be looking at using to boost your learning with artificial intelligence. Just give me 1 second while I wrangle the...
Oh, is it doing the thing?
Yeah, it's just not letting me. I have to click. Aha,
there we go.
all good. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting today on Ghana land and pay my respects to elders past and present. If you'd like to do acknowledgement, Kat, please feel free to add in yours.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge that we teach and learn on the beautiful lands of the Ghana nation, and it is gorgeous. This campus is gorgeous, and we really appreciate it.
Today's session outline is pretty straightforward. We're going to be introducing what is artificial intelligence, AI tools at Flinders, as well as using AI at Flinders. And if you've got any questions, pop your hands up. You know, it's a very small group today, so we'll be very happy to see if we can answer your queries. Okay, we'll start off by looking at Slido, and you can join with your device, asking for some queries. So if you've got your device here, please feel free.
I always like to know how many people are actually using it for no reason, no judgment. Just because sometimes different cohorts, we get very different answers. So I'm always curious.
We always see a good variety of tools, even some ones that I'm not personally particularly familiar with, which is good.
Yeah.
Great, somewhat. Oh, great. Haven't got any nevers yet so far. Hopefully everyone has managed to get on and do their Slido presentations, do their Slido submissions. Still waiting for a couple more, but no issues if you haven't got a device. Okay. So it looks like people are sitting somewhere around the middle. We've got a couple who never use AI. And we've got a few who always, but it looks like most people are sitting somewhere in the middle, which is probably what we might expect. We'll give people a couple more, a minute or two to finish in, because we have got some online people as well. Interesting. We've got sort of a very active mix between somewhat and never. All right, we'll pop on to the next one if you're happy. About how do people feel about AI?
The biggest difference I find with these, when I do these Slidos, is the difference between at the beginning of semester versus in the middle of semester. Oh. Very different results. Very different results.
Do you find people are more positive as the semester goes on and they
get more positive as the semester goes on?
That makes sense. Indifferent, yep. Okay. So most people sitting around the middle, again, that indifferent feeling. A few people feeling bad. Okay, just got another, okay, about a quarter of a split between good and bad, and still smack bang in the middle for indifferent. Great. All right, what word would you use to describe your feelings about using AI in study? Oh, we've got someone starting off, thank you. Well done. Helpful, yep. Companion, interesting. Yep. Plagiarism, yeah, okay. Tool. Paraphrase. Confused. Okay. Oh, we've got a couple. We got someone else typing. Efficient.
Cheating. Yeah, I expect that one.
Great. So there looks to be, a few sort of themes that we're seeing from there. Some people, a little bit concerned about potentially some of the ethical dimensions of using AI in relation to academic study, and quite a few people using it along those, using it as a tool option rather than, doing your work for you. So, helpful, tool, careful. So a bit of caution around using it, but reasonably split between wanting to, I guess, know a little bit more about how we could use it and seeing it as a useful tool. Okay, pointless. Okay, take that back. Because and then a few hard negatives around that. That's sort of cheating, the pointless, plagiarism aspect, which is good because we'll be talking about a few of these things in today's session. I'll give people maybe a minute or more to put in.
Yeah, it just popped up. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so very interesting that there are quite a bit of, some understandable concerns about using AI in study. Do you want me to move on, Kat? Happy to?
Let's do it.
Great. All
Oh,
right.
we've got one more time.
Oh,
Okay. Waste water.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yep. That's absolutely a fair point.
All right, I reckon.
All right. Okay, before we dive into how we can use AI for study here at uni, we do want to give you a brief overview of what AI is. And so I'm not sure, is everyone in the room reasonably familiar with these definitions? The difference between AI as well as generative AI. And you're probably, if we look at AI, computer systems that perform tasks that usually require human intelligence, and some of those sort of obvious ideas I think might be like image recognition software, things like that. They might be embedded in things that you're already using, but you just might not be aware of it. Whereas we're probably very familiar with generative AI. And, those generate text-based things. And that's a type of artificial intelligence that creates new content based on data that it's been trained on. And so this gives you a little bit of an idea of how that creation process is done to demystify how it actually works behind the scenes. So these tools are trained to do this on data that's been gathered. For example, ChatGPT was trained on a massive amount of information from websites, data scraping, that sort of thing. The AI model is then trained to look for patterns in this data. And so text generators like ChatGPT start to recognise patterns in words. Humans are often involved in this process to provide feedback, to reinforce the training, and to make sure that the AI model is getting things right. And so when you ask a question or give it an instruction, it analyses the words to figure out the context and produces a response that matches the patterns that it has learned. Sometimes tools will also do a live search of the internet to bolster the answer it provides. And that gives you an idea of how some of that process might work behind the scenes. There are a large amount of AI tools out there that generate content for you. These are expanding quite rapidly, so I won't list any of them. And that field, is quite rapidly expanding. It's also expanding in other areas of the scholarly landscape, not just generative AI, but all sort of throughout the research process. And at Flinders, there are 2 tools which you have access to. And so the first one is Copilot Chat. And this is a generative AI tool powered by OpenAI, and that's the company behind ChatGPT that can produce both text and images. As a student at Flinders, you have access to Copilot chat with enterprise data protection, which means that your chats are private, secure, and anonymous, and any information you enter is not used to train the underlying AI model. The second tool is called Study Buddy, which Kat will talk a little bit about more, and it's a tool developed by the Student Learning Support Service here at Flinders to give you advice about academic skills, like planning for assessments, writing and referencing, as well as revising. And it's been trained on resources produced by SLSS, so you know the advice will be really useful. These are some other common tools that you might have used or that you might come across, or there are other common tools that you might have used or come across when you're studying. Has anyone used either of these options here on the screen? No? Be great to know, are you using any other AI tools on a regular basis? Nope.
I think the new Gemini is basically used by everyone who does a Google search. It's already had the tools to search whatever you search, basically anything.
Yeah, Gemini is one that I hear a lot about, and it's certainly pretty widely used. Here we go, yep. Gemini, which we're talking about, Claude, Anthropic, ChatGPT obviously generates text, and you can sort of see some of the other tools. And Grammarly, which you might use, and that's an English language writing assistant, and it uses AI algorithms to detect errors in written language and suggest corrections, and has, like a lot of these options, both a free and paid option. I'll pass over to Kat to deliver the next part of the session.
Yeah. So I might just yell into this microphone just so that those online can hear me. So the biggest kind of question that we get from students when they are kind of engaging with AI for the first time is, am I allowed to use this in my study? And if so, to what extent? So each topic, and sometimes even each assessment piece, will have different requirements about how much artificial intelligence you are permitted to use. So before you decide to use any AI tool, and I mean this from the very beginning of your assessment process, before you even put your essay question into ChatGPT, for example, if that's something that you'd like to do, you want to check the following with your topic coordinator. So at Flinders, we do have an AI policy, but it's a very broad policy that essentially allows each topic coordinator to set their own particular guidelines about how they would like AI to be used. So if AI is something that you would like to use in your study, it's something that you need to engage in a conversation with your topic coordinator about quite early on in the piece. So that comes to whether you can use them, which tools you can use, and what you can use them for. So for example, a topic coordinator might say, I do not want you to use generative AI, but you can use Grammarly. You might have a topic coordinator who says, you can use Copilot, you can use it for brainstorming, but you can't use it for writing. You might have a topic coordinator who says you cannot use it at all. So it's very important that you're aware, and it can be different based on not only your topics, but on your assessment pieces. You will also want to know what records you need to keep and which ones you need to provide. So sometimes one of the conditions for using AI is that you may need to keep records of the interactions that you have had with that AI. This is relatively easy to do. You can usually download chats on AI or on your particular tool that you're using. And then finally, how do you need to acknowledge your use of AI? Usually this comes down to a specific a kind of sentence that you might need to put at the bottom of your written assessment, which essentially says, I acknowledge that I have used, for example, Copilot for the editing and proofreading of my assessment. Okay? So even if you are allowed to use AI, you still need to acknowledge your use. So because the guidelines are so particular to each topic coordinator and each topic,
it is best for you to ask the questions first so that you can get as much clarity as possible. So what I would say is look at the instructions for your next or your upcoming assignment. You don't have to do this right now, but think about what guidelines does it give about using AI tools. And if it doesn't, you can always feel free to ask. So let's think about what are some ways that we can actually use AI while we are studying. So generative AI can be used in many ways to help you study and learn. The number one way that we generally recommend is to understand complex content, ideas, issues, and terminology. You can also use it to analyze and brainstorm topics, to plan and draft some outlines, to devise strategies to search for information. So for example, if you would like to construct a Boolean search, which you can talk to much better than I can, check your language, your grammar, or your writing style to create revision tools like flashcards. I find personally that generative AI at its best is when it is taking information that you are providing it and putting it in a different format. So for example, I sometimes like to upload my slides and I get it to summarize my slides for me. So essentially what that is doing is taking good information and transforming the format. And then also summarizing text on web pages using Copilot Chat on Edge. So I think that we are going to do a little bit of a demonstration now. Oh no, it's doing the thing again. Okay, give me one moment. There we go. There's Godzilla again. What we can do is we can have a look at how we can access Copilot Chat. So you can navigate to this from the student landing page. So I can get there for you quite quickly by going to Flinders student page. Oh, not student parking. And essentially, you can access it via here. If you scroll down and find, scam alert. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. You can access it by finding the Using AI for Study page. But if we go straight to Copilot Chat, one way that we can do this, that we can use Copilot Chat is to help us to make a plan for an assessment or a plan for your semester. So, can I get you to hold this for a moment?
Of course.
Let's have a look. How many typos do I have? One. Shit.
It's always when someone's watching.
Yeah.
It's only the eyes.
Yep.
So this is something that we might want to use AI to help us with. And this is because it isn't doing work for us. It's simply helping us to maybe organize time in a way that is simple to us. So for example, what it's telling us is there is a 14-day study plan to help you complete a particular essay. It's going to break down your day into weeks. It's going to break down those weeks into days. It is going to give you very specific instructions on what to do on those particular days, and then also give you some general tips for study. So I would suggest that if you are planning on using AI in your study, using it to help with these kind of more simple administrative tasks is far preferable than using it to co-author your work or to do research for you. And we can also use Copilot for help with our like explaining these. Yes?
For this kind of thing, like making a plan, would you have to say that you use AI for that?
No, no. Only if that's a good question. Only if it relates to your actual essay. So if you give Copilot your essay instructions and you say, can you build me an essay plan on how I might complete this paper, then that's technically brainstorming your paper. This is time organization. So it's really down to how much information you actually give it. Okay, I'm gonna type again. God help me. So let's have a look. Cognitive behavior.
Cognitive psychology.
Oh. Oh no. It's so forgiving of my typos. So essentially what we can also do is chuck some key terms into Copilot and ask it to essentially explain these in a way that is accessible for your year level and also for your level of knowledge. So you can kind of break these down even further. For example, you could say, act as a tutor for a first year university psych student and explain this content from that perspective. But what we can also do is use Copilot to help us with our reading. So what I have up here is a very boring reading about adapting the gamification of e-learning based on students' learning styles. And what I would like to show you is this little button up here. So this is the Copilot button on Microsoft Edge. I know that no one really likes using Microsoft Edge, but it is what kind of Copilot is inbuilt into, and Copilot is what we have that enterprise agreement with, so it protects the data that you use or that you give it. So what we can do is open that little button there and then ask it to essentially summarize. And what it will do is it can summarize PDFs, it can also summarize general web pages, it can summarize your flow page, it can summarize your readings. Now, what I would say is, as helpful as this is here, what we want to do is make this a framework for our reading rather than a replacement for our reading. So essentially what this can really help to do is summarize the reading so that you have a better overall explanation of what it is that you're attempting to engage with. What we then recommend that you do after that is use the knowledge that you have learnt from that summary in order to help you guide the reading that you are doing, especially if you are then using that reading to essentially use for an essay. And what you can do after that is then message Copilot. And for example, you might want to say, is this relevant to answer this essay question? Can this reading help me answer this essay question? So we also have another tool at Flinders, which is called the Study Buddy, which is actually currently going through a big renovation right now. So I can't exactly give you a demonstration for it, but you access it via the Flinders Student Learning Support Service webpage, and you will be able to access that again relatively soon. It is just trained on the Student Learning Support Service information, our resources, so it's a closed loop generative AI. It isn't trained on kind of the entirety of internet data, so it gives you more specific feedback and instructions. Okay, so where are we up to now?
I think it's basically time for me to take over. I'll just adjust this a little bit because I think it's a little bit hard to hear me. So thanks very much for that, Kat. That gives us a really good, great start of how we could be using AI for study. What I want to talk about a little bit now is some tasks where we don't recommend that you're using AI. All right, so who in the room, has anyone heard of the term hallucinate in reference? Yep, yeah. So that's sort of that widely known issue in generative AI. They have the potential to generate incorrect, biased, or misleading information. And that is because the data the tool has been trained on is incorrect, biased, or misleading. And a way you can think about it is it's only as good as the information it's being given. So bad input in, bad input out is quite simple. Or it can be because, like I was saying, hallucination. And this happens when the training data doesn't include information relating to what you've asked about. So it doesn't have enough patterns to draw on. But because those tools have been trained to be helpful and provide a response, they'll sometimes produce an answer that sounds reasonable but is actually completely wrong. And you might think by putting a reference in that's hallucinated, if you haven't gone and independently checked it, your topic coordinator or lecturer, they know their subject area. So if they see a new citation in your assignment that sounds really exciting, they're probably going to look at it, probably because they want to see what it's all about. And then if it doesn't exist, that's where you're going to be in trouble in terms of academic integrity. So we recommend using generative AI to help get you a general idea about a topic. But when you need to rely on information for an assessment piece, you should be using credible academic sources like books and academic and journal articles. And I'll go into that a little bit more. Actually, go back, sorry. When you're finding references, who knows much about, I guess, the terms paywalled or scholarly resources? Yep. All right. So generative AI draws from tools that are freely available from the internet. So they can only give you citations for sources that are freely available, or sources that haven't been cited enough in this data for it to have learned the exact pattern. So they might create hallucinations for citations that don't exist. And so we recommend you using Find It at Flinders or research databases to help you find resources. And that's simply because much information, like scholarly resources, aren't free. The university pays quite a bit of money for access to these resources. And things like ChatGPT will not have access to those paywalled resources. So they're drawing on an incomplete data set, basically. So hence why you're wanting to always use it as potentially a starting point, but it should never be a sole method of, you should always be doing a very comprehensive search methodology using resources that you have paid access to, and you know that they are peer reviewed, for instance, as opposed to information on the internet, which can be biased or misleading. And I think this is where I now hand over to SLSS for a little bit about using, or the non-use of writing prompts.
Yes, so it's also you have to be very careful when you're using AI in reference to your own writing. So one thing that you absolutely don't want to do is have AI rewrite any work that you have written for yourself, which is why you need to be really careful about collecting your prompts and prompting AI carefully, even if you are asking it to do essentially what is a check of your grammar or your spelling. So the way that we would recommend that you engage with this is by writing your specific prompts to AI very carefully. So there are a few things that you need to keep in mind when you're prompting AI. The first thing is the task. So what exactly is it that you want this tool to do? The role, so what role would you like Copilot to act as? The context, so why is this needed and what is the scope of the task? And then the output, so what should the output actually look like? What would you like the output to look like? So what is the level of complexity, what is the tone, and what is the length? Now, as a reminder, these should be things that will help you, not things that you're keeping in mind to produce for an external audience, because we don't want to be submitting or publishing things that are written by AI as our own, because that is a breach of academic integrity. So we also need to be really careful then about how we evaluate output for quality and accuracy when we are prompting AI.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kat. So we've talked about the potential of these tools to generate incorrect, biased or misleading information. Also want to flag that they have their own style of writing, and some people call it the ChatGPT voice. You might recognise it if you've seen it across the internet, that specific style. It's not your own academic voice, which Kat probably could speak a little bit more to, but that's an integral part of being a university student, learning to develop your own voice in your assessment writing, for instance. Also, these tools they are machines, they are not human brains, so they don't have an implicit ability to understand their outputs, and so they don't know if they're correct or not. They lack that critical thinking, which is really what you're here at university to do, to develop your critical thinking skills. They're only as good as the tools they're trained on, like I mentioned very briefly, and the outputs generated will match the information provided, and it is an incomplete picture because it doesn't have access to the full landscape of scholarly publications. You can sort of think about scholarly information as an iceberg. The tip of it is really the stuff that's available on the free web, whereas the majority of it underneath the surface is only accessible via institutional subscriptions, like a library, for instance, that sort of thing. Yep. And so before you're relying on any output, we'd always recommend verifying independently the accuracy of the information by cross-checking with credible, trustworthy sources. So going to the library catalogue, find it at Flinders, or research databases, and we have a range of them depending on your subject area for those scholarly resources. You can also do a web search for information from official sources such as statistics, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, for instance. And also follow links to any sources cited and independently evaluate the information provided, because if they might be basing it on title and abstract, which might be publicly available, but then if you go and look at the full text of that resource, that might not actually match what the AI is saying. So you're always going to be needing to actually look at the information they provided and evaluate it and confirm that it is correct. Going over to Kat.
And I guess finally, if you are using AI, you need to know how to acknowledge it. And so this is the kind of what we get the most questions about when it comes to talking about AI to students, but how you acknowledge your use of AI is very specific and very important. So if you use AI tools in the development of any part of this assessment, so this comes from the brainstorming phase down to the writing phase, it's important to acknowledge them appropriately because this allows you to avoid instances of academic misconduct. So we spoke a little bit about academic integrity in the previous session. This is essentially just the process of being truthful and honest in the production of our work and citing our sources legitimately as to where we get our information from. So it's recommended that you do the following, and the first thing is providing a declaration which acknowledges which AI tools have been used and how. So this should be included as either a footnote or at the end of your reference list per your topic coordinator's preference. If your topic coordinator is allowing you to use AI, asking them how they would prefer you acknowledge it can be really, really helpful in terms of avoiding any confusion. And also ensure that you cite any content that is developed by these tools. We do not recommend that you cite ChatGPT, Copilot, any generative AI. However, in some assessment, you will be asked to evaluate the output of artificial intelligence and critique it. In those contexts, you will want to cite the use of artificial intelligence per usually APA 7, but whatever referencing guide your college uses. So this is an example of an acknowledgement. So I acknowledge the use of Copilot Chat to generate ideas for my essay structure using the prompt, how can students use AI tools ethically in their work? I critically analysed the output and kept 2 of the suggestions, then asked for further clarifications on the 2 outputs before using the suggested terminology to begin a scoping search of the literature. The rest of the output is my own work. Screenshots of my interactions with Copilot Chat have been provided. So if you are using artificial intelligence to help with your research, research or you're writing, it is important that you keep records of how exactly you are using these things. So here are some, thank you, tips for avoiding misconduct. And this is the question I get asked a lot. How do I avoid getting in trouble, essentially, for using AI? The first one is to keep notes about any tools you use and how you use them. And that includes Word or Google Docs to write your essay. Okay, keep a log of any prompts that you feed to AI. Again, you can usually download entire chats from the platform. Keep notes about how you found references, so which databases you searched. Make sure that the work you are citing is legitimate. A very, very important one is to keep drafts as you edit your work. And this is advice that I give to any student in the wake of AI. I know that a lot of students are very concerned about false positives for AI misconduct. What I would suggest that you do is keep drafts of your work. Every time that you start working on an essay, you come back after a couple of hours, make a new document and work in a new document so that you essentially have almost a paper trail of the work that you have been doing. The other thing that you can do is essentially right-click on the Word document as it's saved, or go into Google Docs if you're using it on there and look for your version history. Okay, your version history will essentially show or demonstrate how many hours you've spent editing, where you have edited, because essentially what a teacher will want to see is how long have you spent editing that document, because if you've used AI, you will likely just be copying and pasting it into the Word document, all right? And then finally, if you are using AI to improve your written work, save the work before you apply AI to it. Okay, you will want to have your original, and then you will want to have the work as, I suppose, updated by AI. Another thing that I would really recommend doing, because a lot of students want to use AI to help with their grammar and spelling, is instead of putting your work into AI and having, for example, Copilot change the work for you, I would really suggest that you ask Copilot to assess the mistakes and apply those corrections yourself, okay? So instead of saying, can you please edit my work for me? Instead, you'll want to say, can you please analyze my written work and identify any spelling or grammatical issues? And then you go in and make the corrections yourself, okay? In that way, you're using it more like feedback and less like doing work. Yep? Yes.
What does that mean exactly? Like, which? So you instructed the tool to search a particular data set? Is that what you did?
No, so in this context, what I'm saying is that it's good to keep a log, regardless of whether you use AI or not, as to how you are finding your sources. And that just goes for any assessment. So that might be just noting down where exactly you found the references.
I actually have there's a few resources on the library website where you have some basically search planners, which gives you essentially a pro forma for documenting. So you can be putting in, if you're using a specific database, so putting in the terms, all those keywords and the synonyms you're using, document it, putting it in your and putting it in the planner, like the link to as well as the database search. What you can even do, and I would recommend as always, as part of any search strategy, is creating, you'll have the option to create an account in a database, and you can actually save your search string there and come back to that if you need. So yeah, that's just good governance, I guess, for any assessment documenting the search strategy you did. So you can also, you know what you've done, you can come back to it later, because presumably you're not writing your assignment in one 24-hour block.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
What's an example of a database as one?
Yeah, like ProQuest. What subject area are you in? Linguistics? Yeah, so there's a few very good multidisciplinary ones. So you've got things like JSTOR, ProQuest Central, and that's where, because those are keyword ones, and you can just be putting in your search string that you've used. So, linguistics, I'm not sure what your specific topic is, but you can actually document that and break it up in your research question. You can break it down into the concepts and do it that way.
So this helps to prove that you get, say, ChatGPT, this, that, or the other.
Yes. Yeah.
You show that you went and found it yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And primarily just because we're kind of living in a post-AI world, as it were, and we really recommend that students are aware of governance in terms of writing and producing their assessments to protect themselves from potentially false flags about AI, because it is becoming more common than we would prefer it to be.
Yep.
But it is great to keep yourself kind of aware of how exactly you're using any tool that you're using to research.
Yeah, I just got a little bit onto that. If you're doing, maybe you're considering your honours or your PhD, you'll be required to document your search strategy as part of your methodology anyway. So it's a good thing to think about at this, even if you're a very early stage researcher.
All right, so let's talk about questions. Does anybody have any from me or for Jess now?
When you summarise the reading with the coloured button in there, how do you open the reading in that page?
So,
Most readings are just online.
yes.
Online. You need to put it there,
You can usually download a PDF of things.
and then it pops up there.
Yes, yeah. So essentially, if you, for example, open Canvas on, or you open the library search, so if we just go, you open your library search here, and this is the kind of the search that you will likely be using to find any of your research, but also it's where your readings are linked into. You'll be able to open them as PDFs, and then once you've done that, you can click on that little coloured button there, and it will give you the rundown.
You can see how that would be really useful.
Yes.
Yep.
It's like an entire textbook that's far more manageable.
It certainly is, and it's something that I specifically, funnily enough, recommend to nursing students because of the sheer amount of textbooks that they have assigned to them. What's your area?
Early childhood.
Yeah.
Yes, EPSW is Education, Psych, Social Work. Incredibly helpful resource for those, especially if you have longer textbooks or longer readings that need to be summarised.
Or even specific, quite complex ones with a lot of technical terms. So for nursing, obviously, there's going to be a lot of jargon, so it can help break that down a little bit more for you.
Yeah.
I have used just plug in a random word that I need to double check, and then I'll whack it in Google, read some definitions to consolidate your own understanding.
Absolutely.
It's not producing something, but it's using the internet to help you.
And that is completely valid. Essentially what you're doing is you're researching in that context, especially if you're using Google. And even if in that context you would use something like Copilot, what you're doing is consolidating information by finding definitions of key terminology. And that is absolutely a fantastic strategy for learning.
Doing that kind of summarising and checking of terminology, do you still need to quote that in an assignment?
Not unless you are... do you need to acknowledge it?
Yeah, acknowledge that that was part of your research process.
That really depends on your topic coordinator. So I would recommend that you reference any use of AI just to keep yourself kind of safe. But technically, if you are using AI to summarize an article and then you are reading that article yourself and any citations from that article is from your own kind of like reading and engagement of it, that is a little bit of a different story than, for example, putting something into ChatGPT and saying, paraphrase this for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if you're just doing random Google searches to help you understand the material, is that something that then has to be cited?
No. That's just independent research. Yeah.
I think I understand.
Yeah. And also, and honestly, what I would say is if there is a level of confusion, be it as open with your topic coordinator or your tutor, the person that you have kind of the most contact with as possible, and they will be able to help guide you in making sure you feel comfortable about your kind of production of work.
In the assignment links, I've started the non-semester topic online.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have anything in the AI box under the assignment detail, it's just completely blank.
helpful,
Yeah.
reach out. I would suggest reaching out. If engaging with Copilot or ChatGPT or any other AI tool is something that you are interested in doing or looking into, I would say reach out to them.
Not a great deal. I'm happy to mainly do it on my
Mm-hmm.
own. I just, like you said, you don't want to get pinged for breaching the academic code of conduct or integrity.
Yeah, absolutely.
By accidentally researching something and then not citing it properly.
Yeah, what I would say is we don't count Google as being AI generating. Mostly because it uses an AI algorithm to summarize, but then you do your own kind of research alongside of that.
Even if you plug in a whole bunch of information about, say, an essay question, it's giving you a pathway,
Mm-hmm.
but then you still need to write your own thing that isn't exactly what that said.
Yeah.
It gives you a direction.
Absolutely. And that's, your process of critical thinking and analysing.
It does say for this first assignment to write a 100 to 200 word research paper
Mm-hmm.
to say how you went about the process. So that way you would inform
Yes.
perhaps note that I did random Google searches on these terms.
Exactly. That is exactly it.
Understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that just becomes your research statement or your process of research.
And like the other fellow said, it comes up with AI at the beginning
Yes.
of the Google search, and that's actually quite useful to help you understand what you're trying to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
I think I've got my head around
Great. And look,
it. Try and avoid it as
I
much
know.
as possible.
I know. And look, we're always here for questions if you have them. Does anybody else have? Yep.
So basically, it's never okay for any AI tool to make creative changes to what you've written
Yes.
and for you to use that. So, okay.
Yes. Look, there will be. There may be assessment depending on, I know that you're in humanities, arts, social sciences, so there may be some assessment in which you are asked to use an AI tool to generate work for you, work that you then critique. But generally, we don't want you to think about AI as a co-author. Think of it as an assistant. So you don't want to essentially risk losing your own voice on behalf of artificial intelligence, because trust me, you will do a better job than it does anyway. AI is honestly not a very compelling writer.
It's very bland.
It is very bland, and it uses M dashes a lot. Any other questions? No? All right, so in that case, I think that's us done.
I think we've just got a couple more
Oh, do we
slides.
have more slides?
It's just to show where to find some information, which is always good. Should be.
I always lose my mouse after I click away. Okay.
Oh no. Yep. Next slide.
Perfect. So
Beautiful.
if you need tips, if you would like some tips specifically on how you can speak to your topic coordinator about AI, that video is very helpful. But ultimately, we have a Using AI for Study page, so you can access it via that website. So library.flinders.edu.au/students/AI. And it gives you kind of a way to access Copilot Chat while you are logged into your Microsoft account so that you get that enterprise protection, and also gives you a link to the Flow page that should be up by the end of the week.
I think so. I think we're aiming for a Friday launch.
Hallelujah. All right, so thank you very much for sitting. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you coming in person. And please, if you have any extra questions that you'd like to talk to us about, feel free. You can always come and inquire with the library and with the SLSS if you need any help with research or writing. And good luck in your first semester. So thank you.
Thank you. You press the stop recording. Is that? Ah. Do we need to do anything?
Nah, it'll just stop when it stops.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Turn this on.